Turning 30 as a man can be rough, especially now that we're being bombarded every single day with stories of people who are much younger than us, but a lot more successful than we are. But it doesn't have to be like this. So if you're turning 30 and you're feeling a bit shit, don't worry, I got you. So I'm 31 now, but the other day I was talking to a friend and he's just about to turn 30. And it got me thinking about when I turned 30 and how much it got me down. Right, turning 30 was a big deal for me, it really affected me. But the first thing to remember is that it's very common for a man to experience a quarter-life crisis when they turn 30. And this is for a few different reasons. So first we have societal expectations, right? There's a lot of pressure from society on men to achieve certain milestones by the age of 30. Whether that's in your career, in your relationship, in how much money you've made. And if we don't reach these milestones by the age of 30, it can lead us to really feel like failures. Next, we have life evaluation, right? It's also very common when you get to 30 to start evaluating your life and to assess the direction your life is going. And this can make you ask some pretty uncomfortable questions, which again can make you feel pretty bad about turning 30. Now, we also have biological considerations, right? Now, this isn't as big a deal as it would be for a woman turning 30, but for a man turning 30, it can still be uncomfortable to have that feeling of aging. Maybe you're not quite as physically active as you were before. You're just feeling like you're getting a bit older. Maybe you also have relationship and family expectations, right? So maybe your family are questioning your decisions and how far you've come, what you've achieved in the last decade, right? This can bring you down. And lastly, we have comparison with peers, right? It's very common for us to compare ourselves to other people. This is what they achieved by the age of 30. I'm nowhere near this. I'm a failure. And this is even worse now that we have social media as well. Now for me, it was number 5 with a generous helping of number 2. I was comparing myself to other people at the same time as I was reevaluating my life and the direction it was going in. And this is what made turning 30 so difficult for me. But through trial and error, I did find my way through. So what I've tried to do is try to condense how I did this down into 3 steps that you'll be able to follow. So here are 3 steps, using me as an example, on how you can get over these feelings and actually start to enjoy turning 30. So step 1, like I did, you need to sit down and you need to evaluate where these feelings are coming from. Which of those 5 points that I just shared is it? Or maybe it's an extra point which I didn't share. You need to find where these feelings are coming from and what the root cause is, because it's only when you have this root cause that you now have something to target to fix. Now, if it helps, you could try using the 5 whys method. The 5 whys method is basically a way of digging deeper and getting to the root cause of a problem just by asking why multiple times. So as an example, I don't want to turn 30. Why? Because I'm not ready to enter the next stage of my life. Why? Because there is still more I want to accomplish before that. Why? Because I'm not as successful as some people in their 20s. Why is that important? Because I want to live a successful life and I don't want to feel like I've wasted my life. Why? I want to be more successful than my peers, right? So comparing yourself to others. Does that make sense? Now, maybe you can home in quickly on what the root cause of the problem is, but if you can't, then you can always try this 5 whys method, see if that helps. So now that you have the root of the problem, we can move on to step 2. And step 2 is to combat the problem by looking at the data. For me, the problem was comparing myself to other people and feeling like I hadn't accomplished enough by the age of 30. But like most of us, I was comparing myself to influencers, right? These mega successful people that actually only show us the good side of their life. And the first thing to remember here is that most of this is absolute bullshit. It's there to try and make us buy something. Most young influencers don't actually routinely fly around in private jets or drive around in Lamborghinis. They just make us think they do by posting the right types of pictures. And why do they do this? Because it makes for good entertainment and it makes us feel like we can have the same if we buy their product, right? It's all a marketing ploy. We have got to stop comparing ourselves to them. This is absolutely key. So rather than comparing myself to an influencer, I started to compare myself to an average 30-year-old man. And I started to see that I was actually doing pretty well. And this was the first step in feeling better about turning 30. Now, I reckon that if you're watching this video, you're probably into self-improvement. And if you're into self-improvement, then you're probably actually doing better than the average as well. So the average 30-year-old man in the US is 208 pounds, which is 94.5 kilograms. Now, with the average height of a man in the US being 5 feet 9 inches, around 175 centimeters, This means that an average BMI for a 30-year-old man is approximately 29, which is towards the top of the overweight category. So basically, if you're not overweight, you're doing pretty damn well. Now, what about wealth? The average 30-year-old man earns $52,156 a year, has $11,250 of savings, and is $84,000 in debt. So now that you know this, how do you compare against this? For me, after looking at this data and realizing that I was actually doing pretty well, it was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I think as men, we put a huge amount of pressure on ourselves to achieve certain milestones, and if we don't achieve these, we can really beat ourselves up. But by realizing that I was actually doing okay and that I didn't need to beat myself up so hard, that was like a huge weight was lifted. Now, after comparing yourself to the average, if you're still not doing very well, at least you now have a target to aim for, and it's a realistic target. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need to compare ourselves to anyone, right? One of the pillars of self-improvement is to only compare yourself to yourself. But as a first step, let's at least stop comparing ourselves to these influencers, these outliers, and instead look at the data. Now, I know some people watching this video will go full Goggins here and say, you're never enough, you need to keep pushing, keep grinding. And yeah, for sure, there's always more that you can achieve, you can always be better, and this is why I love self-improvement. But sometimes you just need to sit down and evaluate what you've already accomplished, the achievements you already have, and show some gratitude. And this leads us on to step 3, which is gratitude. So now that you've found the root of the problem and you've combated it with data, now it's time to flip it around and actually show gratitude for turning 30. So think to yourself of reasons why turning 30 is good. Now, if you're feeling really bad about turning 30, then this can be easier said than done. But as an example, these are some of the things I thought of. Turning 30 is good because I'm older and wiser now and have a clearer idea of what I want to achieve. Being 30, I can now be more confident in myself because I now know who I am. 20s are the time to find yourself, 30s are the time to achieve. Right, so think of reasons why turning 30 is good and keep reminding yourself of this. Now, would I still rather be in my 20s? Of course I would. But am I now okay with being in my 30s? Absolutely. So this is what worked for me. I really hope this helps you. If you are turning 30, then happy birthday. Try and enjoy it. It's been a pleasure. I will see you in the next video.